Welcome to the Catholic Parenting in Real Life podcast, where we share practical, real-life parenting tips to help you yell less and become the more calm, connected, confident Catholic parent that you want to be. I'm your host, Katherine Johnson. Let's get started.
I want you to imagine one of your kids coming up to you and saying, "Mom, will you play with me?" How do you respond internally and externally? If you're a parent of an older kid, maybe a teenager, maybe you're thinking, gosh, I wish my child wanted to play with me still. And you might miss those simpler days when your child wanted to be by you and play with you. Maybe some of you with smaller kids love to play and you are just like Tigger, right? Bouncy, 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 fun, 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 fun. My husband is like that. And you love to play with your kid and enjoy time together. And if that's the case, just keep on playing, my friends. But if you're anything like I was, and like many of my clients are, your initial reaction when your child says, "Hey, Mom, will you play with me?" Your initial reaction might be this: ugh. And that feels so ugly to say and to admit. I feel a little vulnerable sharing with you that was my reaction for many years. And whether you dread those words, "Mommy, will you play with me?" or you miss those words, I want to chat with you today on how you can incorporate more playing into your day with your kids in a way that doesn't feel dreadful or impossible or like you're faking it. So later on, I'm going to share with you 4 things that completely changed my relationship with play. But before we get into that, I want to invite you into just a little bit of self-reflection. First, I want you to write down what your initial thoughts and reactions are or were when I mentioned playing with your kids, right? When I talk about playing with your kids, what's your initial thoughts or reactions? And I want you to write those down. Maybe it's "that's childish," or "I'm bad at playing with my kids," or "it's boring. I should be better at this. My kids don't want to play with me. It takes so much effort. I don't have the time. I don't know how. I have so many other things to get done." Maybe those are some of the thoughts. Those are some of the thoughts that I used to have. And there's some of the thoughts that have been shared with me by clients. And I used to be the queen of hating the word play. I'm just going to be honest here. It would bring up a lot of stress and frustration for me, and honestly, a lot of guilt when I would realize I don't like playing with my kids. I don't feel like I'm good at playing with my kids. There was so much guilt because I would think, what kind of mom doesn't want to play with her kids? What kind of mom doesn't know how to play with her kids? What kind of mom, right? And I would just put this heavy just guilt on myself for struggling with play. So just be aware of those thoughts that come up for you. And next, I want you to ask yourself, when I say the word play, what picture comes to mind? For me, pictures that come to mind are like being silly or goofy, or maybe like physical play, like a sport, or it's creative, imaginative play where I'm trying to force myself to pretend to be some interesting magical unicorn in a fairyland with some great story plot. And I personally am not great at pretending to be an interesting magical unicorn in a fairyland. It's not a forte of mine. So with those kind of 2 bits of awareness, I'm going to share with you those 4 things that completely changed my relationship with play. And then we're going to circle back around to those 2 questions again at the end of this episode. So the first thing that changed my relationship with play, I redefined what play meant in my mind. I actually replaced the word play with another word that resonated with me and was actually true. And for me, those words were connect or quality time. So every time my child would say, or any of my children would say, "Hey, Mom, will you play with me?" In my mind, I would basically hear, "Mom, will you connect with me? Mom, will you spend some quality time with me?" Because those phrases didn't elicit dread the way that the word play did. And it was equally true though, because when my kids were asking to play with me, they were asking to connect with me. They were asking to spend quality time with me. Maybe for some of you, like fun and having fun is motivating. So if maybe when your child says, "Mom, will you play with me?" maybe in your mind, you could rephrase that as, "Mom, will you have fun with me?" And if that's motivating, great. And so for me, replacing that word play with connect or quality time, it just changed so much. I could believe it to be true because that is what play is. Play is connection, and I love connecting with my kids. And because of the way their sweet little brains are developing, play is also this incredibly effective way of connecting with them, of making an impact in their lives, of understanding them, and of having more cohesion in my relationship with them. And I'm not going to go super far into that. Maybe in a later episode I will, but there's so much scientific research behind the impact and the power of play. So that was number one, redefining what play meant in my mind and using equally true but more motivating words in the place of play. Number two, I learned that there are many different play languages. I am currently in a parenting coach certification with the Jai Institute for Parenting, and they talk about 10 different play languages. And when I was introduced to that concept, I realized that play is more than just the picture I was thinking about or the couple pictures I was thinking about. Play is really whatever makes you feel joyful, fascinated, or excited. So imagining myself as a unicorn in a fairyland is not joyful, fascinating, or exciting for me. It is not the way I play. It is not my play language. Make-believe is not my play language. But there are many other things that are. And what I really loved about learning about these different play languages is that it made me realize that God didn't create us all with the same way of play. So I'm going to give you some categories of a few play languages that apply to me and my kids. I'm not going to go through all 10, but I'm just going to give you an example from my life with my children. So for me, touch, cuddles, and coziness. That is a play language, and that is one of my play languages. I love hugs. Anybody that knows me knows I am a hugger. And I love sitting on the couch with my kids under a blanket, reading a book, getting cozy. I love snuggling them in their beds at night. Those things bring me joy and connection. I just love it. Okay, another one of my play languages is learning and teaching. I love to learn. I love to learn, and I love to teach. And that learning and that teaching brings me so much joy and excitement. And this last one, don't laugh at me. This last one is order, structure, and dependability. That is a play language of mine. Creating order brings me joy. Creating structure and having things be more dependable excites me. And that is a way that I play. And you might resonate with maybe just one single play language, or like me, you might find yourself across several. Either is fine, but I think it's such a valuable thing to know. So now I'm going to give you some examples from my kiddos. So all of my kiddos actually, I think, have that touch, cuddles, and coziness as one of their play languages. They all love hugs and snuggles and all of those kind of things. But also they have some unique ones that I don't have. So 2 of my kiddos have caregiving and service. Helping others just brings them so much joy and excitement. One of my kids wakes up first out of the whole family and goes downstairs and lets the dog out and loves doing it. Loves taking care of those in our family. One of my kids, one of their play languages is art, creativity, and unbounded expression. This child is so creative, and that creativity just brings them so much joy and excitement. One of my children has action, initiation, and leadership as one of their play languages. And that was an interesting one for me to learn because it showed me how this child really finds leadership joyful. They love being in leadership and initiating things. And then I have a sweet child that is like me with their order and structure and dependability, but also stillness, ease, and simplicity. I have a child that just brings them a lot of joy. And on the flip side, I have another child that their play language is exploration, big movement, and excitement. So you can kind of see in kind of having this lay of the land with the different play languages in your family, you can see kind of where they intersect and maybe where they conflict, right? My child that really likes stillness, ease, and simplicity conflicts in play often with my child that likes exploration, big movement, and excitement. So it was just an interesting and so helpful tool to see that play doesn't have to look 1 or 2 or 3 very narrow ways of how I was seeing it. Number 3, I learned that play does not have to involve endless hours of play. I could start small with 5 to 15 minutes a day per kid and work my way up. And I could also have boundaries around that time. So for me, this might sound crazy, but when I was starting and trying to really grow in my ability to play with my kids, I just set a timer on my watch, on my phone for myself for a minimum, right? So I started with a minimum of 5 minutes per day per kid, and then I could work my way up from there. And if you have kids like mine, you might think, oh, but Catherine, 5 minutes is not enough for them. They're just going to want more and more and more and more and more. My kids are the same way, but here's what I have to say to that. 5 minutes is better than no minutes. And also, I learned that it is necessary and appropriate to put boundaries around the time that we play with our kids. Meaning, if you have a good reason to stop playing, like you're getting ready for work or you're getting ready to go out the door for an appointment, or you're getting food on the table and cooking, you can set boundaries with love with your children. If you have a good reason to stop playing, you can just say to them, I really enjoyed the time we got to spend together playing. I know you wish there was more time, and I do too, but I have some other responsibilities that need my attention right now, and I'm really looking forward to the next time we get to play together. And then move on. And they might be sad, you can validate their sadness, and move on. But this also challenged me when I kind of wanted to move on from play, and I was kind of putting up a boundary around that. It also challenged me to really reevaluate, is my boundary just because I don't want to play anymore? Could I give them a few more minutes right now? Could I stretch my capacity just a minute or two more? Or am I really spent? Am I tired? Do I have other responsibilities that really need my time? So it could be a both and, right? We can give our kids some time and also let them know when that time is going to end and why that time is going to end. And honor their sadness that probably will come as a result of that. Okay, and the fourth thing is that I learned that in playing, I actually don't have to do very much. Play used to feel like a chore for me because I felt like it took so much energy. And what I realized was play for me and my kids can just be me giving them my attention and letting them lead. So if you're a parent like me and you're bad at coming up with ideas of, like I said, the creative unicorn in the fairyland and all of those exciting plots, and your kid really loves imaginative play, let them tell you who you are in the magical fairyland and what you do, and let them write your script for you and just be an actor in their play. And that, for me, that took so much pressure off. I was like, okay, I just have to do what they want me to do. I don't have to come up with something super creative and interesting if that feels too taxing. And another way that I have found play to be very powerful is just by observing my children and talking to them about what I see. So a great example of this is the other day, my 3-year-old came over to me and was like, Mommy, will you play with me? And I was like, okay, what do you want to play? And she just brought over some Magna-Tiles. I don't even remember what it was, but it was something like Magna-Tiles. And she brought them over and I expected her to want me to play, to create something with her. And instead I was pretty tired that day. I just sat there and I watched her. She brought them over and she just started building. And I watched her and I just talked to her about what I saw. Oh, you're picking up the green block or the green Magna-Tile now. And you're connecting it with the blue one. Oh, and you're making a castle. That's a pretty big castle, And so I just basically narrated or sportscasted, they say. I just kind of pretended I was a sportscaster talking about what I saw and maybe even asking her some questions, not interrogating. I wasn't correcting the way that she was building her Magna-Tile castle. I wasn't asking her too many intrusive questions, but maybe it was just oh, how many more levels are you going to make to it? How big do you want to make it? Is there somebody that lives in your castle? Different things like that. And I just sat there and I watched her and she was perfectly fine having me just sit there and watch her create. And the reason why I think this can be so powerful is that it's giving our children our attention, and attention is so hard to come by these days, right? So sometimes all it is just giving our children our full attention. And that can be a very easy way of play, of joy, of connection, of excitement for them and for us. So just to recap those 4 things that completely changed my relationship with play. I redefined what the word play meant in my mind. I replaced it with another word that resonated with me and was equally true. Second, I learned that there are many different play languages. more than just the picture I was thinking about, and that play is whatever makes you feel joyful, fascinated, or excited, and that God didn't create us all with the same way of play. Third, I learned that play doesn't have to involve endless hours of play. You can start small by 5 to 15 minutes a day and then work your way up and have boundaries around that playtime. And fourth, I learned that I don't actually have to do much sometimes in play. I just need to give them my attention and let them lead. So with all of that, I want to circle back to those original questions that I brought up. After everything that I've chatted about, what are your thoughts and reactions now when I mention playing with your kids? What, if anything, has changed for you? And write that down. And second, which of those kind of different play languages that I described resonated with you? Were there any that you hadn't thought of before that resonated with you? Like I said, I didn't go through all 10, but hopefully I gave you enough of a broad spectrum of them so that, it could expand your mind a little bit as to what play can be. All right. So I want to wrap up this episode the way that I always do, with a little bit of homework for you. And that homework is this: how could you incorporate 5% more play into your parenting in the next week? What would that look like? What could that look like? And what would that do for your relationship with your child? How would you be feeling about yourself as a parent, about your connection with your child? How would your child be feeling about their connection with you if you just up that 5% in the next week? All right, my friends. And now your job is to get out there and play with your kids. Until next time, I'll be praying for you.
Thanks for listening. If you liked this episode, please leave a review and share it with a friend. And remember, you are a good parent. Jesus sees you, loves you, and is right beside you in every high and low moment. And you don't have to navigate this parenting thing alone. Reach out to me anytime at Catherine@cjjcoaching.com. See you next time.